Hi, thanks for popping in with me today. Happy spring, at least it's getting there. The weather's warming up. My name is Janice Waitman, and I've been a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator for over 27 years. And today I'm going to be sharing with you a spiritual Easter card. So if you ever need to reach me, you can visit my blog, www.stampaholics.com, and just click on the link that says Shop Now. And then also you can see the online exclusives or any other product you might be looking for. And here is my email address if you need to reach me. And I do have a customer Facebook group. It's called the Stampaholic Stampers customer group. Well, let me show you what we're going to be working on today. This is the stamp set we're going to be using. It's called Rejoice in Him, and it's the spring mini catalog for 2023. It ends the end of April, and this is a stamp set on page 54. And I just used this card right here as inspiration, because sometimes when we look at the catalog, we get so excited about seeing the product, we forget about looking at the samples as an idea book. So it's a great resource there. So I'm going to put this aside. The other thing I'm going to be using, if you look at the DSP right here, the DSP does a lot of the work for you, and that's what I used, again, for my inspiration. And this is DSP called Fancy Flora, and it comes in 6 by 6 inch size, and you get 48 sheets. And I just wanted to share some of the beautiful patterns here. The colors are gorgeous, and they could be used for almost anything. Look at this as far as like maybe a sunrise. It almost looks a little bit like Monet as far as the art. I love the colors and how well they coordinate together. The blues here would be great for like putting a sailboat in. So they could be used for a variety of things. This is a very simple background, but it ties in nicely to the flip side. All of our designer series papers, with the exception of a few specialty papers, are two-sided. And all the DSP coordinates with colors in our color collection. Now some of the greens, some of them have busier patterns than others, so some make for nice backgrounds or just coordinating pieces. I love designer series paper because you really don't have to do too much more to a card to make it work. And the 6 by 6 is a nice size. This, I think, is one of my favorites. It just seems so elegant. And yellow and gray is always a fun combination. So those are just some of the patterns. There are 48 sheets, and so you get 4 of each pattern. So it's pretty cool. So all together, that's what it would look like. You get a large packet like this. And you can find that in the mini catalog on page, let's see the page number down here, 15. And you can see the designer series paper here. And for 48 sheets, that's $12. So that's a great deal. And it always shows you underneath the designer series paper the coordinating colors like Calypso Coral, Daffodil Delight, Soft Succulent, Balmy Blue, Orchid Oasis, and Fresh Freesia. So a very springy palette. And this is what the front side of the mini catalog looks like. And that's good for January through April 2023. All right. So let's look at the stamp set we're going to be using. Again, Rejoice in Him. And it's really a versatile set for Easter. You've got the spiritual image of Jesus, you've got the dove, you've got the palm leaves, and then you've got wishing you joy and love this Easter. Celebrate His love, He is risen, and peace be unto you. And this is a red rubber stamp versus photopolymer. And then I'm also going to be using a die set from the annual catalog. And this is what the current annual catalog looks like. It goes through the end of April. I guess officially it's really May the 3rd, 2023, but not that a few days makes that big of a difference. So anyway, we've got a little over a month left in the catalog. And I'm going to be using the standalone dies called Deckled Rectangles. It kind of reminds me of, gosh, a couple decades ago we used to use the deckled scissors to cut, but this is nice because you know you have a straight edge every time, and they're nested so they have the different sizes with the rectangles. Okay, so that is on page 170, and you get 8 dies, and it's $30 for the set of 8 dies. Okay, so we're going to get started on the card. I'm going to use soft succulent cardstock, and that's one of the colors that will be retiring. It's an in color. It might be carried over. We'll see. I know we're doing a color refresh, so time will tell, but it's a beautiful color. It's one of my favorite greens, especially with evening evergreen. It's a nice combo. So this is just going to be a standard fold. And then I usually do both sides. Then we're going to add the layer of designer series paper. So it's going to look a little bit different depending on which pattern you use. And it's always hard to cover up one side because they're all so pretty. And I'm just using the Stampin' Seal for the adhesive. And a lot of this is going to be covered up, so I don't spend too much time fussing. I try to center the top corners first and then make sure it's pretty close to even all the way around. And there we have a card. And I always like to do an insert, even if the card has a light color. For example, soft succulent is light enough that you could write on it, but I always think it looks a little more elegant when you put an insert. This is evening evergreen, which is a really rich green, and then early espresso, which is a dark brown. And when they're open like this, here I need a, you can hardly tell them apart, but you can see the little label at the end. So I'm going to decide what I want on the inside of my card, and I think I'll put the palm frond maybe down here at the bottom corner. And then we'll just put that on the inside. And it's nice that you have a variety of images and verses or greetings. And we're just going to once again center. And then we have the deckled pieces that I talked about cutting up with the deckle. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stamp Jesus in early espresso. And I'm going to put him pretty close to the top because I want to put a sentiment right underneath it. And you can see how nice and crisp that brown is. And then I'm going to use the sentiment, He is risen. And then I'm going to give that a moment to dry, but I'll go ahead and adhere it to the evening evergreen layer of cardstock. So I told you these colors really coordinate nicely, the soft succulent and the evening evergreen. And when you use the dies, it's so much better than when we used to use the deckle scissors because you were never straight when you were cutting with those. Something was always a little crooked. Now I went ahead and stamped some of the palm fronds on some scrap basic white cardstock, and then I fussy cut these, and this is what they look like after you fussy cut them. So I just cut out 3. And then we're going to take some blends, which are alcohol markers, and I like to start with, I'm going to start with the dark color first. This is soft succulent light, and you could then use I would use light, soft succulent, and then maybe the dark. So I use the thick tip. And you don't want to press too hard because you don't want to break down the tip. So I'm just barely touching the cardstock here. And I am not an artistic person as far as coloring. That's why I like the blends. I'm just kind of putting some shadows in here. And just kind of going around. There's really no rhyme nor reason unless you're a good person for art. And then you would probably know better than I am here. Okay, so now we're going to go with maybe a lighter color. And again, I'm going to use the thick tip. And you can see it's just a shade lighter. So I'm just going to kind of blend those in, and you'll just get kind of a You can see the difference between a little light or dark, and it gives it a little depth. And you don't have to be exact. I'm just kind of dancing over the cardstock. So you can see it's not a real precise, and you can leave some white space. That even looks good. And that just ties in a little bit with the card. And the last color I'm going to be using is Ivory. Again, the thick tip. I just prefer that for coloring. And that's what I like about the blends. You don't need to be really artistic to use them and feel like you're successful. I have some friends who are very artistic and are good at watercoloring, and they know all about the shading, and theirs looks beautiful all the time. But not all of us are so blessed. So there we are. We're done with those. Now I'm going to just use some adhesive and put him on here. And then it's kind of up to you if you want to add anything else. This can lay pretty flat. One thing I need to put on here, I almost missed it. Decide where you want to put your palm fronds. And maybe one here. They can't hang off too much or you're not going to have any room on the card, so you might have to move them down a little bit lower once you get it on there. And then one maybe on the bottom off to the side like this. And just make sure it fits before you put it down on the card. And you might want to even set it off to the side rather than centering it. And then I like to add a little bit of Wink of Stella. And that's up to you, a personal choice. It's very subtle, so I don't think it takes away from the card in any way. So you'll see in a second. It's the little brush, and again, you don't have to push too hard or squeeze. But when I hold it up to the light, you'll see it just has a really soft shimmer. That looks like this. And the last thing I'm going to add, and this is personal choice, whether you want to put a little extra bling on here, using the gold faceted adhesive backed sequins. Say that 3 times fast. And you get 80 sequins in here of different sizes. This is also in the Spring Mini. And you can find these on page 43. And they look like this. And I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool and maybe put, not the teardrop ones, but maybe put one right here because there's a little bit of white space. And then maybe one right here, a smaller one. And then maybe a medium one. That kind of looks large though. Right here. Just for a little bit. So this would be your card. I forgot to stamp my envelope. I think I will do a dove on the envelope just to kind of carry a theme through. So there's your card. It looks like this for the envelope. There's the card itself and the inside. So very easy. So again, here are the supplies I used. MC is for mini catalog, and again, this is 2023, the spring. This mini catalog goes in through the end of April, and the annual catalog goes through, I think, May 4th, 2023. The stamp set I used is Rejoice in Him in the mini catalog, page 54. The dies I used were the deckled rectangles, and they're in the annual catalog, page 170 in the back. They're standalone dies. The cardstock was basic white, soft succulent, and evening evergreen. And I put a note over here that those last 2 colors are part of the retiring in colors. They may be held over. I don't know at this time. We're supposed to find out in a couple of days. Ink I used was Evening Evergreen, Early Espresso, and you can find both of those in the annual catalog with all of our colors on pages 122 to 123. The Designer Series paper is gorgeous, and that's the Fancy Flora. It comes in a 6-inch by 6-inch size. You get 48 sheets, 4 of each design, and that's in the mini catalog on page 15. And then I used the Wink of Stella for a little sparkle, and that's in the annual catalog on page 128. Dimensionals, the gold faceted adhesive back sequins, boy, that's a mouthful, and those can be found in the mini catalog on page 43. And the blends, I use Soft Succulent Light, Soft Sea Foam Dark, and then the Ivory. So I think that's it for all of the supplies for this card. Have a happy Easter, and thanks for tuning in today, and happy stamping out there.